The Committee on Insurance and Financial Services shall come to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll to establish a quorum?
Madam Chair,
Present.
Representatives McCall,
Here.
Coleman,
Here.
Stone. Here. Green. Rogers.
Here.
Scott.
Present.
Young.
Here.
Fitzgerald.
Here.
Brandt. Harris.
Here.
Markkinen.
Here.
Bazat.
Present.
Aragona. Rock.
Present remote.
Nair.
Here.
Smith.
Present.
Madam Chair, you have 14 members present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We need a motion to adopt the minutes of February 9th, 2023. Representative Fitzgerald moves to adopt the minutes as printed. Hearing no objections, the minutes are adopted. The only item we have to finish today is a presentation from the Department of Insurance and Financial Services that they started on February 9th. Here again from DIFS is Joseph Sullivan, Insurance Legislative Liaison at DIFS, and Ross J. Yudnock, Financial Services Legislative Liaison at DIFS. Thank you, DIFS, for your presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Committee. I know it's been quite a few weeks since we were here before giving our overview. So as we discussed, I'm going to redo some of the health insurance portions from that presentation to slow down and hammer home a couple of those key points. So I can talk about some of the healthcare access and coverage work that the department has been doing. So we worked with the Biden administration to extend the enhanced ACA plan subsidies. So that required significant amount of outreach and support from our department with our Office of Consumer Services and our communications areas. We are working on efforts to increase health insurance enrollment. We just set a record of 320,000 enrollees in the individual market this past year. And then one of the big efforts we're working on at the moment is called a state-based exchange. So the concept for this is transitioning Michigan off of the federal marketplace, healthcare.gov, to a state-run entity with the goal of maximizing nimbleness, flexibility, and cost savings. So some of the key benefits there are the fee that the plans would pay per member per month that would go to the federal government, which is currently 2.75%. Instead, that would be captured and sent back to the state-based entity, the state-based exchange, and then we would have control over where that money is spent. That could be invested in customer support, reinsurance programs, and then also given to community groups known as navigators to help with health insurance enrollment and customer service functions. So that is a big opportunity for us. There are about 18 to 20 states that have made that transition so far. We've heard as many as 10 other states are considering making that transition as well. So we think that that is a really good position for Michigan to be in to consider making this change at the moment. One of the key benefits to making the change now as opposed to making the change right when the ACA was passed is now there's vendors that have experience. They've helped other states implement this. So we believe that this is a really ideal time to consider making this transition, and that is something we've been working on for the last few months with conversations with stakeholders, legislators, and CMS, and expect to see more on that item in the future. So the next thing that I will flag is insulin initiatives. So right now, Michigan is looking to partner in producing insulin in an attempt to drive down the cost of this crucial medicine. DIFS is coordinating with other state departments in this effort. The governor issued an executive order this past fall, which directed multiple state departments to gather information and data on the insulin and prescription drug space. So our focus on this is primarily research. So, we don't regulate manufacturers. So our role is determining who's most impacted by the high cost of insulin, which plans those are, how this would intersect with the uninsured and benefit them, and then additionally, should any sort of state partnership in the manufacturing front get up and running, how would that work with our state's insurers, and how would we best run that operations as far as the distribution, the manufacturing, the coordination, and all of the logistics associated with that. So those conversations are ongoing. I will say that the report, I believe, was just released publicly from the governor. So there's some good information in there, and I'm excited to have further conversations with you all in the near future. And then the last piece here is one that the chair asked me to discuss, and that is the Medicaid redetermination. So as many of you know, the public health emergency is ending in May, and there will be a wave of Medicaid redeterminations needed. So we're coordinating with DHHS on how Medicaid and commercial plans intersect. We are developing a multimedia advertising and outreach campaign. But essentially what this means is consumers must update their contact information so that they actually get the application for the redetermination. They must report all of their changes to their address, personal info, and then fill out those renewals. So some of those consumers may not be eligible for Medicaid, but may be eligible for a marketplace plan with subsidies that cost is around $10 a month. So that's really our role in this, is helping those transition that aren't eligible for Medicaid find a commercial plan that they can transition to. So I will say that this applies to renewals for Medicaid and Healthy Michigan plans, and the redetermination process will be starting in June of this year, and it will continue and staggered until May of 2024. And we are looking to partner with the legislature in this effort. So we are developing guidance and toolkits that can be used to utilize for your e-newsletters and outreach and coffee hours with your constituents to let them know that this is coming up, and that both departments stand as a resource that can help facilitate that process. So the next thing I will discuss is PRIRA. This is something that is administered by DIFS. We're responsible for regulating what is called the Patient Right to Independent Review Act, as I said, PRIRA. So this act provides review of certain health coverage adverse determinations made by health insurers. So if a consumer does not agree with the health insurer's final adverse determination, they have 127 days to file an external review under PRIRA. For example, if a consumer were to receive a service or a prescription drug that their insurer denies, they can then use this process through DIFS. This is especially impactful in emergency cases through the expedited external review. So surprise medical billing, sometimes called balance billing. This may occur because consumers may not have known that a medical provider was not in network and that their health insurer would not cover the healthcare services at an agreed to in-network rate. Out-of-network providers typically have not agreed with the consumer's health insurer to accept certain reimbursement rates for the services provided to the patient. A surprise bill occurs when the consumer was not made aware of that provider not being in network, and then bills for the consumer for some or all of the costs of the services that the health insurer did not cover, other than applicable copay, coinsurance, deductible, or other cost sharing. So these bills can be significant amounts of money and can cause confusion and stress for patients. So what's relevant here is bipartisan legislation was signed in 2020 to address this. This law requires providers to inform consumers of the possibility of balance billing using a disclosure form sent at least 14 days before a scheduled medical service. The form must explain the consumer's insurance company may not cover all services and that the patient would be personally responsible for any uncovered costs. As part of this notice, patients may also be given a good faith estimate of the total cost of the care they will receive, enabling them to budget for those expenses in advance or choose alternative care to meet their needs. Michigan's surprise billing law applies to insurers that are regulated by DIFS, so this includes plans purchased on the health insurance marketplace. And as I mentioned last time, DIFS just updated a new consumer guide on this topic, and it is currently available on our website. Okay, so Pharmacy Benefit Manager, PBM licensure and regulations. So last term, there was a bipartisan effort on prescription drug pricing by addressing a key cog in the supply chain called PBMs. These are companies that manage prescription drug benefits on behalf of health insurers. They are a third party that negotiates with drug manufacturers and pharmacies, and they have a significant behind-the-scenes impact on total drug costs, access to certain medications, and pharmacy reimbursement. So they have faced some scrutiny about the role in rising prescription drug costs and related spending. This reform allows Michigan to have a greater regulatory authority over PBMs and defines new standards for PBM business practices to help keep them accountable. While this is only one aspect of the supply chain, the licensure requirement and added consumer protections will curb certain business practices and are expected to have a positive impact on consumers. So this is our website, michigan.gov/diffs. Our website offers several resources such as consumer information, publications, legal actions, access to insurance statutes, bulletins, etc., and a health insurance resource page, and also locators for licensees. Here are the various social media platforms that the department utilizes. You can see all of the information for those below. And then lastly, here's our contact information. So generally, constituent inquiries should be sent to Renee's area, the Office of Consumer Services. Legislative matters, dependent on the topic, should be sent to either Ross or myself. I cover insurance issues for the department, and Ross covers the financial services issues for the department. So again, didn't have a ton left on the presentation, so thanks for the opportunity to be before you today. I am happy to answer some questions from members.
Thank you very much. I would like to start off with a question. Can you provide an overview of auto no fault complaints, specifically the access to care and provider billing complaints report?
Yeah, so I'll say sometimes some things can get conflated. So we have the total number of complaints that we received and all of the issues that we regulate for the department last year was, as Renee had testified a few weeks ago, 8,517 total cases, and then of those cases, just over 7,000 were on the insurance side. And that's not just specific to auto no fault, that's every insurance thing that we regulate, right? So, but the reports that you're talking about are reports that we update every Monday that are specific to things related to the auto no fault reform. So the threshold for something to be considered an official complaint under one of those reports is kind of two things. So the first off is they have to ask the department for help, for assistance with whatever that may be, whether that is an attendant care, access to care complaint, or that is a billing complaint from a medical provider. So I know I've had conversations with a lot of you all on this committee about what the specific categories of those mean on the report themselves. So what we've done is went through and provided a specific definition about which each of these categories is. So we provided a definition for what's considered just a regular call or email, what's a formal complaint, what complaints are still considered open, and which ones are considered closed. So this is updated every Monday on our website. We do weekly updates. I guess it's easier to explain kind of some things that aren't considered complaints under these. So if we receive repeat inquiries from the same person about the same topic, those would all be considered one complaint, because how our software works is each complaint is categorized and given a case number. That case number is assigned to an analyst in our Office of Consumer Services, and then that person will be the point of contact for whether it's a consumer or a medical provider throughout the duration of that process. So it's certainly possible for some of these cases to be closed, and then an issue arises back on that case again. That case typically would be considered the same case because it's a case number, and the reason why it's organized that way is because that's how our system is designed to be the most efficient to provide assistance to those people that we possibly can. So I don't know if you want me to go through the definitions of each of these categories, but I will say, like I said, a formal complaint is when somebody says, hey, I have this issue, can the department please help intervene on behalf of us with the insurance company? So what we will do is contact the insurance company, give them 48 hours to respond to whatever that inquiry or complaint is through our rapid response program, especially if it's an access to care thing where somebody's care is potentially being disrupted. And then we will contact the insurance company. We will review for compliance with not only state law, but what their policy says. And then that case is considered closed when all of those thresholds are met for statutory and compliance with their policy. So that might not mean that the consumer is happy with the outcome of that because potentially their care shifted or was different. And on the billing complaint report, which, you know, to be clear, there's two separate reports, right? One for attendant care and one for billing complaints. that would be closed when we review that for compliance with state law and we determine that the insurer has reimbursed in accordance to the fee schedule that was part of the auto no-fault reform from 2019. So, but yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell, but those are the 2 complaint reports that we issue that are specific to auto no-fault. We also have a total number of complaints. A lot of those other complaints can be things like a licensee asking questions about their license, or if somebody gets in an auto accident and they're disputing what's going to get repaired in their vehicle, or if there's a health insurance dispute or life insurance, really any of the areas that we regulate. And then, you know, on the financial services side, banking fees and things like that would be a potential complaint.
Thank you for that answer to that. We have a lot of questions, and I'm going to ask everyone if you could just limit your questions to 1 question, because we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to ask their questions. Now, Representative Young.
Good morning, and thank you for coming back and finishing up your presentation. So we know that on last year, there was a new program that begun, the Michigan Open Account Coalition, that whole group. And so I'm wondering, are you able today to give us an update on how that's going, how that's been working? And then I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, the Michigan Open Account Coalition, it's part of a national effort. It's a partnership between DIFS, the Cities for Financial Empowerment, the Michigan Bankers Association, and Michigan Credit Union League to encourage financial institutions to offer free or no-cost accounts that don't allow for overdraft fees. It's one of the reasons why people leave don't have a bank account. They've had one in the past. Currently, there are 31 different accounts available, offered at 27 different financial institutions. I believe 67 counties have at least one financial institution branch offering these accounts, and there are more than 1,000 branches, and I expect that number to continue to increase as more financial institutions offer these accounts.
Okay, so the quick follow-up, Madam Chair, if that's okay. Because I understand that it can cost an individual around $3,000 when you're unbanked. And that's huge, particularly for folks that are struggling already to end up having to give up so much in these hidden fees. I am interested in knowing where these banks are, if we can get that information to find out who, particularly in our districts, that have decided to join the coalition and to be certain to help folks that have these types of needs.
Yeah, absolutely. I can get that information. I know right now I've got it broken down by county, but we can get more specific in Wayne County, kind of break it down by district as much as I can.
That'd be very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Rep. Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about the health insurance front as an overall. What do you anticipate coming up, issues that are arising? But I really appreciated you bringing up surprise medical billing. Revisit that from 2 terms ago. How, and more specifically, now that it's being implemented, how, you can predict 2 weeks out for an assigned procedure. But when someone's in crisis, visiting an emergency room, having a trauma, or even an unexpected childbirth, somewhat a premature birth, how does surprise billing impact those financials?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know the specific provisions that are outlined in the law, right? But, as far as how that would work in that type of situation, I think I know the answer, but I would rather talk to our area that handles surprise billing and get you a specific response. Is there a specific case or someone that you're aware of that?
I'll follow up after.
Okay, got it.
Thank you, Rep. Stone. Rep. Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Appreciate you coming back and taking the time. My question is what would you say the benefits of a state-based exchange are?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So there's a lot of benefits to some of the things that we've seen from other states. I think I flagged the no wrong door provision, and I think that there's a lot of things that the state could do with that. So with cross-department communication, so you could potentially have communication with Treasury, DHHS, to create a platform where if someone wants to just go in there and fill out their information, it will tell them what they're eligible for, and it'll make that easier, and the communication, cross-department communication would be easier. Flexibility is important, and I noted that because right now with the federal exchange, if any state wants to make a specific change, say, due to circumstances specific to that state, they would have to get buy-in from every single other state that's on the federal exchange in order to make those changes. So you can be more flexible, you can be more nimble because that process would be easier. And then ultimately, we might get to a place where, and that's the trend right now, is so many states are considering this transition to a state-based exchange that there may only be a handful of states left on the federal platform, subsidizing the federal platform. You know, they don't get to set what that fee is for their insurers. They don't get to set how the customer service works. So customer service, you can be as flexible as deciding how long of a wait time you want for the consumers that reach out to that and budgeting accordingly for that. So there's financial benefits, state control benefits, operational benefits. So really from everything that we've seen from a lot of other states that we've talked to that have made this transition, Pennsylvania is a really good example of a recent state that's made the transition. So we've seen a little bit what their numbers look like. And I think another key benefit is financially, once this is up and running, it's sustainable. It doesn't require general fund dollars to operate. So the fees that are paid by the plans go into this and then would fully fund the program. So I think, and I mentioned reinsurance a little bit too, so it opens up with the 1332 innovation waiver. You could explore reinsurance opportunities to help reduce premiums for people on exchange plans. So really the benefits are huge. Not only, Medicaid redeterminations, that process would be incredibly easier if that sort of cross communication existed and was controlled by the state instead of the federal exchange. So those are just a few things. So I could talk about that a lot, I think, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Okay, we have Rep. Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick follow-up question on something that was said earlier. So you mentioned software for complaints with the auto insurance crash survivors. So just to be clear, can you go into a little bit more detail? You said, if there's a repeat inquiry, it's not going to be counted as a complaint. So my concern and my question is, there may be similar style complaints, but they may be different cases, if you will. So you may have insurer A having such and such a situation, and then a very similar situation in a different insurance or medical provider. How does the software not just kind of cancel that out, if you will?
So to be clear, first off, I'm not an IT expert, so I can't speak to the specific operations of the software. I know the software that we use is quite a few decades old, and I know we're in the process of looking at updating that right now at the department. So it's on a case-by-case basis. So a lot of this is pulled by an individual analyst, so that analyst is looking at the case, and they will look at it. And if it's an entirely new issue, that would be considered as a new complaint. But if it's a reopening of the same issue with the same insurer, for example, that would be considered the same complaint. So that's why sometimes you'll see on the report that we issue every Monday a little bit of fluctuation with those numbers. So a case might open because they get care plan in place temporarily, and that plan expires. It's not necessarily a bad thing that there's an open complaint, right? That means that they've reached out to the department, they're coordinating with us, we're coordinating with the insurer to try to make sure that the statutory and policy requirements are being met. But yeah, so really it just depends. It's on a case-by-case basis, but ultimately if it's the same case that's opened back up again and there's nothing fundamentally different about it, that would be the same case and it would just shift on those lines. So it wouldn't be a closed case, it would be moved to an open case and vice versa.
Okay,
So.
Thank you. And then switching gears over to the Medicaid redetermination, I appreciate that it is on your radar and that you are standing up some tools, particularly for us. I think we touch a lot of residents that we really need to get that word out. Do you have a timeline or a general sense of when the digital toolkit will be up and ready?
Yeah, I don't want to put too much pressure on our comms team, but I'll say I think as early as next week is a possibility.
That would be wonderful. I've heard different dates, April 1st, and then you just said June 1st of when this process is rolling out. And I just think our offices need as many tools as possible, so we really appreciate the partnership. Thank you so much.
And just to clarify, it's not just us, it's DHHS, so it's
Sure.
a combined effort between the two
Sure.
departments and, yeah, on the guidance. But yeah, that should be very soon. I know it's close to being finalized.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Rep. Scott.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and continuing the conversation. Can you tell me what is DIF's rate review process on auto insurance?
Oh, okay, so, yeah, I can get into that a little bit. Hang on. You know, I have statistics here I could share, but
Okay.
before I get to those, I think it's important to note that DIF's role is to implement the statute as passed by the legislature, and in that role, we attempt to make sure that insurers are complying with the state law. So since December of 2019, which is when we first began receiving filings related to the new law, and by the way, the new law required those filings to be submitted to us. That was a portion of the no-fault reform. So for the first time, we started utilizing outside actuaries to review those rate filings. We had a total of 641 rate filings that were received. During that review, our goal was to achieve compliance, as we said, and we issued along that process 5,822 objections to those rate filings, which is about an average of 9 objections per filing. So what does that mean, right? That means that we reviewed the initial filing from the company. That was kicked back to the company, and we said you did not meet all of these requirements. That could be any number of things. It could be they improperly set those rates based on some of the prohibited rating factors. It could be that the rates were not actuarially justified and they were in excess of what we thought was necessary for those rates. Some of those filings that were received were rejected. Some of those filings were disproved, and in some cases, they were even withdrawn by the insurer. So the numbers for that were 13 filings were rejected as incomplete or wrong filing type that were never finalized. 30 were disproved ultimately for not demonstrating compliance after the 90-day period, and 58 were withdrawn by the company because they were not demonstrating compliance. So ultimately, of the 641, after the back and forth, 476 filings were approved, and there are still 64 right now that are under review.
And how long will it take for them to be under review? Like, when will you make a determination?
Oh, it's a case-by-case basis, but that's expected in the near future.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Rep. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here this morning. My question surrounds the insurance marketplace as it currently stands. There's, many factors in the insurance space right now that have been contributing to mergers and acquisitions, rebranding of insurance brands. Part of that, though, feeds into entrance into the Michigan marketplace as it pertains specifically to auto insurance. And curious if, since the reform took place, if we have seen an uptick of insurers being appointed to the state of Michigan to operate here, if we have seen an increase in competitiveness, and how we go about that process to ensure consumer protections.
Yes, so to be clear, are you talking about any specific type of insurance? Is it auto insurance?
Primarily auto insurance. I don't know if that needs to be a monoline carrier or if we've just seen additional auto insurance companies be appointed here in the state of Michigan since that reform took place.
Right. Yeah, I can talk a bit about that. Of course, increased options for Michigan consumers have the potential for that increased competition, right? Will create more job opportunities and they'll lower costs, right? That was one of the stated intents of the reform, was to increase competition in the marketplace. So the DIF's process, the law requires any insurer that's looking to enter the market to first acquire baseline authorization from the department, which includes an analysis of the company's financial stability to ensure that they have enough money to pay their claims. So this company must later submit and then receive approval for rates and forms from DIFs. As if you recall, that's a part of the new auto no-fault reform, where they have to go through that process now. We actually have a report that we've shared with the legislators on this, and at the report it basically says, here's what we've seen so far. Here's the number of companies that have received baseline authorization. This doesn't mean that they're selling products in the state now, but it means that they've started that process and are considering entering the market. Some of those 61 have. I think I have a breakdown here. But our report clearly states that at the top. So right now we're at 61 new companies or affiliates that have just the baseline authorization to enter the market. Of those 61 companies, 47 are considered new and 14 are considered authorized but looking to offer new products. And a new product can be an insurance company that's in the state and they're looking to target a specific demographic or a specific geographical region in the state to expand competition there. So of that 61, 15 of those companies have approved rates and forms, meaning that they're now authorized to sell those rates and those products to consumers. But I'll say this too, it's common for an insurer to enter the market and then wait a while to kind of examine that market before they release their rates. They'll do things like observe trends, work on developing new products, and then they have to, of course, submit their rates and forms. Some of the common reasons right now that they might be waiting to enter the market completely is because of some of the uncertainty that's out there at the moment. So, of course, I noted last week that there's the case before the court. That could be one potential reason. There's inflation going on, and they want to ensure that they can develop those rates accurately before they're submitting those to the department because, that's a process that they have to go through before they're completely authorized to sell their products here in the state. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of what we're seeing right now. So 61 have started, and then about 15 or so of that 61 are currently selling products.
No, that does provide good background. One follow-up, if I may, Madam Chair. With regards to your review process, you talked about, a financial review of the company. Is there an AM Best rating that is required to operate here in the state, or is there a minimum threshold for credit solvency?
So Judy in our department does incredible work. She's been with us for decades, and she is an expert in that space. Unfortunately, I am not. That is a very, very good and very technical question, and I will have to talk to Judy about it. And I've yet to ask her something that she does not know. So
I appreciate that. I appreciate the follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rep. Breen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for my lateness. I'm blaming my daughter. It's all her fault. No, I'm kidding, Abby. And I'm going to preface this with the fact that I know that this isn't your fault, Mr. Sullivan, because you've been very good and gracious about answering my million questions, especially revolving no fault. But the biggest complaint that I've heard over and over again is that the 2019 reforms have decimated the home health care industry, particularly because of the rate cuts. We also have had the 56-hour rule implementation. And so one thing that I've noticed is that people will have the same complaint over and over again. Namely, they can't get anybody to take care of them because there's nobody available to take care of them because the rates have been cut. So if somebody calls and it's the same person and they are saying repeatedly, I don't have somebody to take care of me, and when that happens, if it's somebody with a TBI, that means basically the fire department has to transport them to the hospital because there's nobody there for them. How do you keep track of that? Because if it's the same person with the same complaint, if I'm understanding it, they're just reopening that case and it's not marked down as a new instance. How are you keeping track of that data? And then, Madam Chair, after he answers that, if I may, I have another follow-up.
Yes. One.
So clarify what you mean by tracking that. Like, how are we tracking that through our complaint process? How are we
Yes, is that
monitoring
recorded as a separate incident?
So, first off, nobody would want to trade positions with people in that space, right? And ultimately, I have a lot of sympathy for that, and it's a rough position that they're in, right? We do not know about every single incident unless they're reaching out to the department or if we read about them in the press, in which case we will reach out to the press and say, hey, we noticed that there's a story about this consumer. They're experiencing an access to care issue. Can we reach out to them and try to facilitate them through the process? So some people decide to go through the DIF's complaint process. Some people decide that they would rather take the legal route. That is completely a choice of the consumer. I will tell you, if they're a case that we're tracking with our attendant care complaint process, we will make sure that the insurer is providing them the care that they're entitled to by the law. So, as far as like what's reimbursed to the provider and things like that, we have to follow the statutory guidelines that are in the law when we're doing that. But yes, there is a standard of care that the law requires in providing access to that consumer, so.
Okay. I'm not sure if that answers my question, but I'll be glad to follow up with you.
Sure.
But another thing that I'm hearing frequently about is a retroactive voiding of insurance policies. So if somebody, I'm wondering if that is within your space, and just as an example, somebody gets into a car accident, they file a claim, and then their insurance company says to them, oh, you didn't tell us your son moved home from college. That changes your rate. Therefore, you didn't provide us with the information, and we are voiding your policy. So they're retroactively voiding policies. I'm wondering if that is within your space or not.
It would be likely within our space. I would have to talk to our Office of Consumer Services. If there's some sort of violation of state law or the policy that they've signed, then yes, that would be something that we could look at. It's not something I've had a legislative office contact me about or come across my desk, but I'm happy to look at that for you if you have some info you could send.
Happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Rep. Bizot.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for coming back and putting up with us, but I'm still trying to figure out who's most disliked, insurance companies, politicians, or the media. So I know you have a tough job. Some of my questions have been answered, but I'd like to go, how many insurance companies provide auto no fault? You have any idea?
Oh, the exact number of companies? No,
Approximately.
I don't know if I could tell you that number.
Okay.
I saw that the rate filings. What was the number there?
You oversee those companies. Do you set policy for them, or do you, anything like that? Do you oversee the insurance companies?
Yes, we oversee the insurance companies. Yeah.
And so the auto no fault, we have 18,000 victims that paid for their insurance. And when this law went into effect, I think it went in July of 21, correct?
2019, or the
Well,
fee schedule 2021. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the 18,000 victims, and they made it retroactive. I just don't get that. Why did that happen?
I can't comment on legislative intent, and I know that there is a Supreme Court
There's
case.
nothing in the law that says they can do that.
Well, and that is a topic that's before the Supreme Court literally today that they're debating.
In the meantime, we got 18,000 victims out there. And I've heard from tons of these people, and I'm really tired of getting calls from these people in the same complaint while the insurance companies sit back, and now it's in the Supreme Court. And we all know that that process is going to take 2 years?
The Supreme Court
It's very,
process?
very frustrating. Well, yeah.
I don't know how long that process will take. I've not heard that it will.
Well, in the meantime,
will take
you've
that
got
long.
18,000 victims out there, and our phones are ringing off the hooks. Why aren't we doing anything about this? So it's pretty frustrating.
You know, like all of these folks, we're going to be watching this case very closely. As soon as the appeals court decision came out, we issued a bulletin stating that that is now law of the land as far as reimbursement is concerned for the retroactivity piece of that. So it's certainly something that we're aware of. We're monitoring that case, and oral arguments for that case start this afternoon.
And it's been going on for a while. In the meantime, we've got attorneys that are getting rich off the process.
Thank you, Rep. Bizot. Rep. Harris.
Hi, thanks again for answering all these questions for us. So I want to go back to your original presentation the other week. If we go back to your slide on increased consumer protections, one of your bullet points was the elimination of certain non-driving factors with auto insurance. Can you maybe just touch on that again for me, what some of those non-driving factors are, and maybe highlight how credit score falls in with that?
Yeah, so that was part of their form. You're correct. So the eliminated non-driving factors are sex, marital status, home ownership, credit score, education level, occupation, zip codes, and and that's regarding rate setting, right? So that's what the law says. That's what's being implied right now. You know, There are certainly other things that insurers can use to set rates, but those specific items were listed as things that were prohibited from the rate setting.
All right, we've gotten a couple of calls, so I'll follow up with you offline. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Harris. Rep. Nair. I hope I pronounced it right. Close enough.
Close enough. I want to jump back to the exchange and the move to Michigan there. Who will be operating it, and who will have oversight over that as it progresses? You know, where the responsibilities fall from the day-to-day to operations, and then who will have oversight and making sure that it's operating correctly?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and there's multiple levels of checks and balances in there. So, of course, we don't have one up and running yet, so all those specifics will be determined because it requires enabling legislation in order to put that in place in Michigan. So one of the models that we've looked at, as I said, was Pennsylvania, and they run theirs as a nonprofit entity. I believe that they have 11 board members. The specific backgrounds and roles of those board members is people from industry, medical experts, people with a lot of potential good backgrounds that can help provide knowledge to the operations of that exchange. So, and then what exchanges do is they will appoint from the board an executive director that will run day-to-day operations for that exchange. So the best way to describe how this exchange will run is it's not the plans themselves that are changing. So the products that are being sold are going to be the same. It's the mechanism for selling those products. So the store for selling the products. So you would go on, Michigan Cares or whatever we decide to name it, should we enact it, instead of healthcare.gov, and that would be the platform that you buy those plans. So all of those plans that are being sold on there would still be held to the same regulatory review that they're held to now by the department. So with review of their rates, with review of their forms, and making sure that they're in compliance. There's also additional checks and balance through the department. A lot of states have delegated some authority to appointing board members based on legislative recommendations. So there's a lot of checks and balance that you could add in there. So, but there's requirements in there for confidentiality of data, and that's a benefit that we have being a late entrant into this space. Is that we can look at what's worked in a lot of other states and try to implement that here and tweak it as we need to make it compliant with our laws.
Seeing no more questions, I'd like to thank you, Joseph, Ross, Department of Insurance and Financial Services, for coming back again and giving us a background of what DIFs do in the financial services world. Thank you, members, for those questions. It was wonderful. Now I'd like to turn the committee's attention to a letter that I distributed to each of you. This letter outlines my courtesy suggestions for the committee. They are as follows. To ensure proper consideration and respect is given to this committee, members will be expected to arrive on time as prepared. Should a member expect to be absent, please notify me and my staff. If on the committee day you will arrive tardy, please feel free to text me. I will hold up the vote until you arrive if I'm able. While I encourage members to ask questions of bill sponsors and stakeholders, please be mindful of our automatic time constraints and the time necessary for all testimonies. For a bill to be considered in this committee, bill sponsors or lead sponsors of a bill package will be required to furnish my office with a letter requesting a hearing and providing a summary of the bill. For active bills in committee, bill sponsors need to coordinate testimony of stakeholders with my office and with the committee clerk. If anyone testifying will be using a computer or display on the monitors in the committee room, a file must be provided to the clerk in advance. As a courtesy, bill amendments or bill substitutions should be submitted to my office and to the Office of Policy Advisor and committee clerk a minimum of 24 hours prior to committee time. This is necessary so there is time to consider the amendments or substitute and time to process the document. Finally, it will be normal policy for us to hear testimony in one or two committee hearings. If a bill arises on the level of being voted on, the vote will take place on a different committee day. In other words, no first testimonies and voting on the same bill in the same meeting. If a committee is called, it means we have something substantive information before us. To that end, this committee will not meet just for its meeting's sake. I hope that you all take this courtesy suggestion to heart and keep them in mind as we work together through this session. I would now like to take a moment to introduce myself and then allow each of my members to briefly introduce themselves. I am Brenda Carter. I represent House District 53, which encompasses the whole city of Pontiac, 1 precinct in Auburn Hills, and 8 precincts in Waterford. I've had the fortune of being on the insurance committee for the past 2 sessions. First as a member and then as the minority vice chair. Now I'm the chair. I can't wait to get to work with all the members on this committee and getting things done in Michigan. And now I will turn it over to my vice chair, Rep. McFall.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Mike McFall, and I represent House District 8. House District 8 includes Madison Heights, Hazel Park, a precinct of Ferndale, parts of Detroit, and Highland Park. I'm really looking forward to learning more about insurance and working with everyone as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Rep. Coleman.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. My name is State Representative Kevin Coleman. I represent District 25, which is the majority of the city of Westland, all of the city of Wayne, the south end of Canton, and a little bit of Dearborn Heights. And this is my 3rd term serving on insurance, and just really pleased and excited to be working with everybody. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Rep. Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lori Stone. I'm the representative of the new 13th House District, which includes Eastern Warren and portions of Detroit.
Rep. Breen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kelly Breen, House District 21, which is Western Oakland County, the greater Novi area. Just as a bit of background, this is my 2nd term, also my 2nd term on insurance. And in my previous life, I was an attorney specializing in insurance defense as well as representing people injured in auto accidents as well as workers' compensation injuries.
Thank you. Rep. Rogers.
I am State Representative Julie Rogers, House District 41. That is the city of Kalamazoo, Kalamazoo Township, a little section of Portage, a little section of Comstock. I am also a practicing physical therapist and the chair of health policy. I'm very excited to be on this committee. I think there's a lot of intersectionality with health policy and insurance. Thank you.
Thank you. Rep. Scott.
Hello, I'm Helena Scott. I represent the 7th House District, which includes Detroit and Wayne County. Also in Oakland County, I represent Ferndale, all of Ferndale, half of Royal Oak Township, a third of Royal Oak, and all of Pleasant Ridge. And really excited to be part of the Insurance Committee. Thank you.
Rep. Young.
Stephanie Young, House District 16, parts of Northwest Detroit. We go from, if you know anything about Detroit and you know where Southfield Freeway is, that's the Eastern Brownie all the way down to Farmington Road. So that takes us through South Redford Township and parts of southeastern Livonia. So I have a very unique district that I'm excited about. Last term, I served on financial services. And so I'm excited to see that it's been combined now with insurance and having the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the insurance industry. And so thank you, Madam Chair.
Rep. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is John Fitzgerald. I represent the 83rd District. That's the city of Wyoming, southwest side of Grand Rapids, in a single precinct in Byron Township. I am a first-term member, though for the last 6 years of my career, I have been a producer agent here in the state of Michigan on the property and casualty side. Still currently hold that appointment here in the state of Michigan as well.
Thank you. And now for the Minority Vice Chair, Harris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mike Harris, I represent the 52nd District, which is in North Oakland County, includes the other portion of Waterford, Independence Township, Clarkston, Lake Angeles, as well as a portion of Springfield Township. In my prior life, I was a police officer, retired a couple of years ago. I ran our fatal investigation unit, so I dealt with a lot of serious crashes and dealt with the auto industry quite a bit. I also dealt with a lot of insurance fraud in my career, so looking forward to working with everybody.
Rep. Bizat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bob Bizat, I represent the new 50th, which is Fowlerville, Howell, northern Livingston County. I also have a background, law enforcement, elected sheriff three terms, and Vietnam veteran. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. He's online now.
Representative Markkinen's online.
Okay, Representative Markkinen? He's online?
He's skipping.
Okay, thank you. And Representative Bruck? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it is I'm very appreciative of you allowing me to zoom into the meetings. My name is William Bruck. I'm from Erie. We have the distinction of being the most furthest southeast township in the state, and also the furthest southeast district in the state, District 30. So it's my honor to serve as our representative for our district. And I am not there, obviously, and currently on active duty orders down at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and hopefully with an end date of April timeframe of coming back home and starting a new length of service. I have been in the military for in April will be 31 years as an Army and Army reservist. So I appreciate getting to meet and get a little bit of feedback from Lansing. It's been very unfortunate being here, but I enjoy being able to participate when able. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Bruck, and thank you for your service. I just have to say that. Rep. Nair?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jerry Nair from the 92nd, which is Isabella and Gratiot County. That includes the cities of Mount Pleasant, Alma, St. Louis, and Ithaca. Farmer by trade, consumer, familiar from the insurance and finance side from a business standpoint there, and looking forward to serving on the committee.
Thank you. Rep. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Rochelle Smith, and I represent House District 43. That encompasses parts of Allegan, Barry, Eaton, and Ottawa counties. And this is my first term. I look forward to serving with you all on this committee. Thank you.
And now we'll take a minute to introduce the staff, starting with our clerk.
My name is Joy Brewer, and I'm a third-generation Uper. I have 32 years working within the legislative system, and 28 years of it is as a committee clerk. So thank you.
Thank you. And our Coffee Ann? Is she here? Our policy clerk? Okay, thank you. Okay. We have Phil Brown.
Good morning, everyone. Phil Brown, Republican Policy. I feel like I've been here for about 150 years, but in reality, it's only been about 2 decades. So, first year on insurance, and look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. And now our friends from the Legislative Service Bureau will introduce themselves. We are joined today by Derek Walters, Kathleen Norris, and Kathleen Norris. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Kathleen Norris. I'm in charge of the financial institutions portion. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can email me or call me.
Derek Walters, lead counsel, Legislative Service Bureau. I've been an attorney for 20 years, 11 of which I have legal divisions. While I have many subject matters that I work on with regard to insurance, I do everything except no fault. We have Kim Reed in our office this item right now. Thankfully, does no fault, although I do check all the bills. So anything no fault, come with me.
Thank you so much for that. I'm looking to see, did I miss anybody that was online? Rep. Grant, are you online? Okay. All right.
There.
I thought I heard something.
I'm here. Good morning,
and I'll just quickly say I'm Representative Grant from the 82nd District, that is Southeast Grand Rapids, and one small precinct of Wyoming. This is my first term serving, and I'm excited to be here and work with you all.
Okay, now I need a motion to excuse, oh, yes, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Please.
Good morning, Thomas Collins, House Democratic Policy.
Thank you so much. And I'm sitting here and saying, don't forget this. Almost a perfect meeting. And anyway, okay, right now I need a motion to excuse Representative Aragona. Okay, so move. Okay. Representative Harris moves to excuse Representative Aragona from today's meeting. Hearing no objections, Representative Aragona is excused. I love that. Anyway. Anyway, seeing no further business before the committee, we need a motion to adjourn. Okay. Representative Breen moves to adjourn. Hearing no objections, the committee is adjourned.